Hello and welcome to a new video in the ZAP Chat series. And this is going to be a video about a new feature in the new ZAP release 2.14, and it's called ZAPit. And this time I'm actually joined by Yanis. Now,
Hello.
so usually I don't I stick at these videos, I keep technical, but on some interviews I've done, I have done explain my security origin story. And what happened was, I'll keep it very short, there was a pen test that did not go as well as expected, and on one of my services, and I knew it was going badly after I came in 1 hour into the pen test, only to find one of the pen testers logged in as myself, super user, having cracked the single sign-on system for the whole company. Now, why is that relevant? Because that was the first time I met Yanis, who was the pen tester who logged in, who cracked the single sign-on service. So, Yanis, I don't think I've had a chance to publicly thank you for ruining my week in 2009, but also, more importantly, starting my security journey, which led to ZAP. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your patience and being part of this cybersecurity community. Little did I know we're going to be here a few years later, right? Discussing the amazing tool that you've put together with the team.
And the team, exactly. So do you want to give us a quick introduction to yourself?
Yeah, sure. Just keeping it short. My name is Yanis Paplosoglu. I have contributed to a number of web application relating standards and activities. And currently, one of the things that I've really enjoyed is getting back into contributing to ZAPit and seeing some of the great work, Simon, that you've been doing with the team and the code, and how much of a tool, how well established is ZAPit within the web AppSec community. Congratulations to you and the team on that.
Thank you. So, I mean, you got back in touch with me a few weeks ago, wasn't it? Wasn't long ago.
Yes.
And you came to me with this idea, and I just thought, oh, I like this. So give us an overview. What is ZAPit? What's the idea?
Well, I got back into web application security after having served as chief information security and, joining a number of senior echelons of management as CISO, and really looked at the state of the tool set that we're using and was not happy with it, right? ZAPit being a prime good example, but most of the tools out there, if you download any pen testing image, your bog standard web app tool set is not really that good. And my motivation in reaching out to you was, well, I know that you have solved this problem, and we'll talk a little bit about what this is in a second, but we haven't made it simple for the web AppSec community, not just penetration testers, but also developers, also product owners, people that end up owning a website they've inherited. We have not made their life simple in terms of understanding what they're up against in terms of a web app that they've been handed either to test or they've inherited and they need to look after it. So the basic premise of ZAPit started with, what is the maximum we can get out in terms of a response, single request response, to figure out what we're up against, either Monday morning, the pen tester is starting the web app test, or somebody has inherited an application and they're trying to see what they're up against, trying to get a feel of it. And what really motivated me was people were still using the old tool set because, great tools, but a bit dated, things like Paros and Nikto and similar, which, are very good. But at the same time, the world has moved on a little bit. It's 2023, and we need to, come up to speed with what it is that are actually the needs out there to figure out quickly and promptly what you're up against in terms of a web application. That's the motivation, and that's what got us here. And as you said, you quite went, oh, I'll have a little bit of that. How was it received on your side, Simon?
Really good. I mean, this was something that really spoke to me, particularly when I was at Mozilla. I had responsibility for the web applications behind Firefox. And there are all too many times when you find out about a new web app. And I mean, sometimes you'd find about them early, in design stage. Sometimes you'd find out when they're in staging. Often you'd find out from some sort of marketing release and you go, oh, I don't know about this. So
Yes.
security
Yes.
person, what you need to do, there's lots of ways you find about new applications. Obviously, you're going to try and find out who's behind it, talk to them. But while you're trying to find that out, I just want to know as much as possible, as quickly as possible about this URL. Is it something, does it raise loads of red flags, or is it, okay, no, I don't feel so bad about this. So, by the time you get on the phone or on Zoom or on Slack or whatever, you've kind of got an initial impression of that application. And that's what I could imagine myself using this for back when I was doing that job.
Indeed, indeed. And I think those are that's the primary use case. Those are the three use cases. So pen testers are trying to figure out what they're up against. Somebody who's looking after an application that maybe shouldn't have reached production, but somehow magically is already in production. That's a second use case. And then also somebody trying to figure out just the baseline real quickly of what the app is doing.
Great. So I think that's enough talking. Let's demo.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go for it. Yes, indeed.
So
First of all, let's start with ZAPit itself and the great 2.14 release.
Yeah.
What are you going to be showing us, Simon?
Right. One of the so obviously I've got ZAP installed, and a lot of you watching this these videos will have. But if you haven't, what you can do is you can actually run it via Docker, or if you're on Kali, you can do it that way. The thing is, this is actually a command line option, so there's no GUI at the moment. It's just command line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run ZAP, and I'm going to do the ZAP stable from Software Security Project /ZAP stable. I've pulled this already just to speed things up. And don't worry about copying down these commands. We're going to write a blog post about this, so all the commands will be in there. So you don't have to desperately try and copy what I'm doing. But that will basically put me in a bash shell in the ZAP stable Docker image. Now, if I do /zap.sh -h just to run the help, and it will set up the root to the standard directory. As you'll see, we've got a whole load of command line options. And lower down here, we'll see ZAPit target URL. From a quick reconnaissance scan. And also says the -command option must be used. So let me so what I'm going to do is -command and then -ZAPit and https:// example.com. And, often we say with ZAP, you should only be testing ZAP against applications you have permission to test. In this case, we are doing no attacking at all. You can see we just made one request there. So it's a standard HTTP or HTTPS request. And so we can see that, and we'll show you some examples of redirects in a bit. You can see how long the request took, the response code, the response size, no cookies in the request response, and then technology. It's not available because we actually need another add-on for that. So let me install that. So -command, and then we want to do add on install. Get the right number of L's.
So Simon, while you do that, tell us a little bit about the Web Analyzer add-on. What does it do?
Yeah, so Wapalizer is a third-party product. It's actually just been taken closed source, but luckily someone else has forked it and is now maintaining it. So this really looks at requests and responses, typically responses, and works out what technology is behind the web application. So it's really useful. And also, I'm going to install the pscan rules beta. So we have a set, particularly in the stable image, we have a set of release quality scan rules, both active scan rules and passive scan rules. pscan rules are the passive ones. In the stable image, we don't include the beta ones. So I'm going to install the passive scan beta rules. There are also alpha rules as well, so could install those. And that just gives us more information. There's just extra things, but these rules are not quite as stable and well tested as the release quality ones.
So you basically have to install the two add-ons, Web Analyzer and P for passive, scan rules beta, and because it's in beta, it's not included by default. That's why you have to install that. Excellent.
And I will just do add-on update. Now, this we'll actually do nothing here, but oh,
Add on update, always tricky with a live demo.
add add on update. Now I'm not expecting this to do anything because we've only just released the stable release, but obviously we release it once a month. So if there are any updates in between, we'd miss out on those. As I said, add on update, check complete, nothing else installed. So we're looking good. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back and run ZAPit against example.com again.
And now we'll see a little bit more about the tech.
Yeah. And here we go. So again, we still see the request coming in, and here's the technology. So we can see Amazon ECS, Amazon Web Services, Azure CDN, and Docker. And I think we've got, so what we're showing now is the alerts. Now, these are alerts raised by the passive scan rules, and we can have high, medium, low, and informational. And you shouldn't just believe these and go, okay, there's been a particular alert, therefore there's a vulnerability, therefore I raise it via a bug bounty or whatever, try and get some money out of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
You should always double check these things. And just because there's an alert, it might well be that the company has decided, we know about this and it's not a problem, we do not want to enable this particular security control. So these information for you, just giving you an idea of what's going on. And we also give you root page stats. So you can see things like the content type, number of HTML tags, number of links, forms, and number of input fields. And remember, this is really useful on the very first page. So that's the information from example.com, which is not a particularly interesting application, actually. So, Yanis, what else should we test?
Let's have a look at something that's going to give us a lot of verbosity. Shall we start with twitter.com?
Okay, let's go. So let's have a look at Twitter.
So Twitter is going to be interesting in a number of ways. First and foremost, in terms of what does it allow there we are, as a number of sub-resources and specific items where wildcards are being used. You see the medium CSP, content security policy, wildcard directive. They actually need that in order to allow for video to be functioning, right? So going back to Simon's quote, it's not about taking a medium risk finding from ZAPit and then including it in your pen test report. It needs further analysis and triage. What I like about the response here is that it under 1 second, 565 milliseconds, I'm able to figure out what technology Twitter is still using, right? They're under new leadership. I'm able to figure out real quickly what it is that they're doing in terms of the web application setup. So if we scroll a little bit further down, Simon, you see that we've got a number of JavaScripts and a number of lows as well in terms of cross-domain JavaScripts happening. Again, needed functionality, the way that Twitter is set up. And then also, to Simon's point, I can see what I'm dealing with in terms of HTML tags, forms, links. So a lot of tags, very little forms, one input field. Straight away, we know roughly what we're up against.
And there's also informational modern web application. So a lot of security tools are much more effective with traditional web applications. Now, we've done quite a lot of work with ZAP to make it handle modern web applications better. There's still more work to do. But one of the things ZAP does is actually tries to detect modern web applications. So we can actually choose then to use the Ajax spider instead of the traditional spider, or as well as the traditional spider. So there's lots of, we can see that ZAP has detected this. There's a lot of really useful information here.
Indeed, indeed. You know what you're up against in a very short time, right? Normally, this would take a number of other tools, some of which are not maintained, in order to figure out what you're up against. Now, you have all that information in one page on Monday morning as you're starting your next web application test.
And we see things like response cookies, and and if you see multiple requests and responses for redirects, you'll see the cookies go across. So you see a lot of information. And
shall we do another one?
Yeah, let's have another one.
Let's go for something that returns a 404. So having looked at the websites, and actually one of the ways that we tested this was we took the top 1,000 websites for one list or another, it doesn't matter which one, and we saw what type of responses we got back. That was our kind of
against all of them.
yes, absolutely. So fonts.googleapis.com is on the top 100. It's basically by default a website that returns a 404, an error back. Nothing comes back. But there is something of value that will come back from the response that we're going to see here. There we are. We see the 404. Now, what's interesting straight away, even though I have a 404, I can see HTTP 3 is being used as a technology. Of course, this is going to have to be investigated further and actually assess whether or not HTTP 3 is being used in terms of, sending a request that supports not only HTTP 1.1.1, 2, but 3, and seeing what response you get back. But we got a hint that something that is future technology is being supported on the googleapis.com, on the fonts.google.apis.com.
Now, one thing I think is interesting here is content security policy header not set. Now, we often see these on 404s, and there was quite recently a case of SQL injection attack on a 404 page.
Yes.
So, and quite a few people, I've had cases before, gone to developers and said, look, you haven't got CSP on your error pages. And they've gone, do we really need it? And I've tried to convince them they do, but I haven't had good examples of, this is why you really need it. And now we have a good example why you should really have, we've got CSP on the rest of your site. You probably want it on your error pages as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have a big bee in my bonnet about SQL injection still being around, because after being in the corporate world for more than 10 years, I set up my second company, Kyberna. And one of the services, of course, that we had to offer, right, was pen testing, because that's part of the bread and butter of what InfoSec companies do. And we started off with 2 pen tests, one on the .NET Framework 4.5 and one on Java, Jakarta 10, your standard enterprise Java. Both had SQL injection. I couldn't believe it. And this was last year, effectively, when we started the company. And it's like, I phoned up, needless to say, Simon, I phoned some of the original authors that we wrote the OWASP testing guide with, and had a big long rant about how come SQL injection is still around.
That is crazy. So what am I going to test next then?
Let's have a look at, so we did Twitter. Shall we have a look at the BBC website?
Yeah, and I'm going to do HTTP just to.
Very often in many circles, the BBC is used as, for example, when you're connecting to a wireless network and you don't have the certificate for SSL, the BBC is used in HTTP as the website that is being served traditionally to test connectivity. And we see a lot of responses come back. And I know, Simon, you have a favorite on this page. I don't want to take.
I do, but I'll go back to the front. So you can actually see we've got 2 redirects here, because we request to bbc.com HTTP. So that gets redirected to HTTPS, and then we get redirect to HTTPS www.bbc.com. So, and then as we scroll down, we'll see lots of interesting things. The one I particularly like is suspicious comments fix me. So we get interesting information here.
Absolutely. And again, this is something that could have a little bit of meat on the bone, or it could be just something involving some JavaScript component that really makes no difference in terms of exploitation or vulnerabilities. But straight away, in under a second, you're able to deal with the 302s, the redirects, and then you're able to just have a view of what you're up against, of just a single request and response. Really like that feature.
Great. Well, I think we're actually running out of time on my Zoom, unfortunately. So better wrap this up quite quickly. Thank you very much for that introduction to ZAPit and the suggestion. Now, I mean, one thing we do want to do is we'd love to hear about people using this and how you get on with it. And you've got any suggestions? Because we've got lots of we've had lots of thoughts on things we could do. So, we could have some HTML or PDF reports. We could actually have an option to have a longer scan where we kick off the spider. Would you want to know how many endpoints there are? These things will take longer, but there's lots and lots of things we could do. But we don't have that many people working on ZAP, and there's a million things we want to do. So we only want to do the things that are really effective, that people really want to use. So please try this out and let us know how you get on. So that's it. Thank you very much, and subscribe to the channel and let us know what you think about it and what else you'd like us to cover. Thank you very much.
Thank you.